At my brother's family reunion in Asheville, I stood up during dinner and said, "Before we toast Dylan and Natalie's 5-year anniversary, there's something everyone needs to know about Natalie." The room went dead silent. What I revealed next destroyed her carefully built lies and saved my family from years more manipulation. But getting to that moment nearly broke me. The Blue Ridge Mountain Lodge was everything my brother Dylan had promised it would be. Rustic wooden cabins scattered across 40 acres of pristine North Carolina wilderness, a crystal-clear lake that reflected the autumn colors like a painted mirror. And enough space for our extended family of 32 people to spread out without stepping on each other's toes. It was the perfect setting for what was supposed to be the perfect weekend. Saturday evening, October 14th. The date is burned into my memory like a brand. The main dining hall was decorated with mason jars filled with wildflowers, string lights that cast a warm golden glow across the exposed wooden beams, and photos from Dylan and Natalie's relationship timeline carefully arranged on a display table near the entrance. She'd thought of everything, down to the cloth napkins that matched the fall color scheme and the playlist of acoustic covers that created just the right ambience for a family celebration. I sat at the corner table, nursing my third glass of wine and watching Natalie work the room like a politician at a campaign event. She moved with practiced grace, her auburn hair catching the light as she laughed at Uncle Frank's terrible jokes, complimented Aunt Beverly's new haircut, and listened with rapt attention as my cousin Jake's wife explained their toddler's latest developmental milestones. Every gesture was perfect, every smile timed to perfection, every conversation calculated to build her image as the ideal daughter-in-law, sister-in-law, and family member. She's really something, isn't she? My cousin Riley slid into the empty chair beside me, following my gaze across the room. Dylan hit the jackpot with that one. I forced a smile and took another sip of wine. Yeah, she's something all right. Riley didn't catch the edge in my voice. Why would she? For the past 2 years, Natalie had been methodically building her reputation as the golden child of our family. The one who remembered everyone's birthdays, who organized surprise parties for the older relatives, who always brought the perfect dish to every gathering and somehow managed to make it look effortless. She was the daughter-in-law that every mother wished for, the sister-in-law that every woman wanted to befriend, and the wife that made other couples question what they were doing wrong. I watched as she knelt down to help my 6-year-old nephew Carter tie his shoe, ruffling his hair in that casual, affectionate way that made him beam with pride. She'd always been good with children, which was one of the things that made her so dangerous. Kids are honest in a way that adults aren't. When a child lights up around someone, it sends a message to every parent in the room: this person is safe, this person is good, this person can be trusted. But I knew better. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dylan's voice cut through the dinner conversation as he stood up at the head table, his wine glass raised high. The room gradually quieted, conversations trailing off as attention turned toward my brother. He looked happy, genuinely, radiantly happy in a way I hadn't seen since he was a kid opening presents on Christmas morning. If I could have everyone's attention for just a minute, this was it. The moment I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure for the past 3 weeks. Ever since I'd found out about this reunion, ever since I'd learned that Natalie was planning it, ever since I'd realized that this would be my one and only chance to tell the truth in front of everyone who mattered. 5 years ago, Dylan continued, his arm sliding around Natalie's waist as she stood beside him, I thought I knew what love was. I thought I understood what it meant to find your person, your partner, your best friend, all rolled into one incredible woman. The room filled with appreciative murmurs and soft ahs from the romantic contingent of our family. I felt my stomach clench tighter, my hands beginning to shake almost imperceptibly around the stem of my wine glass. But Natalie didn't just become my wife, Dylan went on, his voice thick with emotion. She became part of our family in a way that I never could have imagined. She's the one who remembers that Grandma Rose prefers her coffee with just a splash of cream. She's the one who helped Aunt Beverly navigate Medicare when Uncle Frank was in the hospital last year. She's the one who organized the surprise 60th birthday party for my mom that made her cry happy tears for 3 straight days. more approving sounds from the assembled family members. I caught sight of my mother's face across the room, glowing with pride as she looked at her daughter-in-law. My father was nodding along, that satisfied expression he got when he felt like his family was complete and successful. Even my usually skeptical grandmother was smiling, her weathered hands clasped together in approval. They had no idea, none of them had any idea what Natalie had been doing behind their backs. How she'd been systematically isolating me from every single person in this room through carefully planted seeds of doubt, subtle manipulations, and outright lies that were so skillfully crafted that even I had started to question my own reality. She remembers everyone's anniversaries, Dylan continued, everyone's kids' names, everyone's favorite foods. She sends thank you cards for crying out loud. This got a laugh from the crowd, but more than that, she makes everyone feel seen, feel valued, feel loved. And watching her do that, watching her care for all of you the way she cares for me, just makes me fall in love with her all over again every single day. I watched Natalie's face during this speech, studying the micro-expressions that I'd learned to read over the past 2 years, the slight tightening around her eyes when Dylan mentioned how she made everyone feel valued. The barely perceptible pause before her smile widened when he talked about her caring for the family. The way her fingers briefly pressed into his back when he said he fell in love with her all over again. She was good. She was really, really good. But I'd been watching her for a long time now. And I'd learned to see through the performance. So, Dylan raised his glass higher. I want to propose a toast to the woman who didn't just marry into our family, but who made our family better just by being part of it. To Natalie, who proves every day that love isn't just about finding the right person, it's about being the right person. To my beautiful, generous, incredible wife. To Natalie. The room chorused, and 31 wine glasses rose into the air. Mine stayed on the table. The sound of clinking glass and cheerful celebration filled the air around me, but all I could hear was the rushing of blood in my ears and the rapid beating of my own heart. This was it. This was the moment I'd been planning for, rehearsing for, building up the courage for over the past 3 weeks. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the wooden floor with a sound that seemed impossibly loud in the celebration-filled room. A few people near me noticed, their conversations trailing off as they looked up at me with curious expressions. Actually, I said, my voice cutting through the noise more sharply than I'd intended. Before we finish toasting Dylan and Natalie's anniversary, there's something I think everyone should know about Natalie. The room didn't go quiet all at once. It was more like a wave, starting with the tables closest to me and rippling outward. As people realized something unusual was happening, conversations died mid-sentence, laughter faded to confused murmurs, and gradually, all eyes turned toward me. Dylan's face showed confusion first, then concern. Claire, what are you doing? But I wasn't looking at Dylan. I was looking directly at Natalie, watching as her perfectly composed expression flickered for just a split second. A flash of something cold and calculating that none of these other people had ever seen, but that I'd become intimately familiar with over the past 2 years. Sit down, Claire, she said softly. Her voice carrying just the right note of gentle concern that would make everyone think she was trying to help me avoid embarrassing myself. You've had a lot to drink tonight, and there it was. Even now, even in this moment, she was doing it. Planting the seed that would make everyone question my credibility. That would give them a reason to dismiss whatever I was about to say as the ramblings of someone who'd had too much wine and was a boo-tee to make a fool of herself. But I'd been preparing for this exact response. I've had 3 glasses of wine over the course of 4 hours, I said clearly, loud enough for everyone to hear. I'm perfectly sober, and I'm perfectly serious. There's something about Natalie that all of you need to know, something she's been hiding from this family for 2 years. Something that explains why I haven't been to a family gathering in 8 months, why I stopped calling Grandma Rose, why I missed Mom and Dad's 35th anniversary party. And why half of you probably think I've become some kind of antisocial hermit who doesn't care about family. Why anymore? I could see realization dawning on some faces around the room. My absence from family events had been noticed, had been discussed. had become a source of hurt feelings and whispered conversations about what might be wrong with Claire. Why Claire had become so distant, whether Claire was going through some kind of personal crisis that she didn't want to share with the family. The truth is, I continued, my voice gaining strength with each word, I haven't been to family gatherings because Natalie has spent the past 2 years systematically convincing each and every one of you that I'm a jealous, bitter, unstable person who can't be trusted, who says terrible things about people behind their backs, and who has been spreading lies about her marriage to Dylan. Dead silence now. Even the kids seemed to sense that something serious was happening, their voices dropping to whispers as they looked back and forth between the adults. None of that is true, I said, looking around the room at faces that ranged from shocked to confused to concerned. But Natalie is very, very good at making people believe things that aren't true. She's good at planting seeds of doubt, at telling different versions of the same story to different people, at making herself look like the victim while systematically destroying someone else's relationships and reputation. Claire, stop. Dylan's voice was sharp now, protective. I don't know what's gotten into you, but this is completely inappropriate. This is our anniversary celebration. You're right, I said, turning to look at my brother directly. This should be a celebration. And it would be, if the woman you married was actually the person she's pretended to be for the past 5 years. But she's not, Dylan. And I can prove it. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. My hands remarkably steady now that the moment had finally arrived. 2 weeks ago, I hired a private investigator. Not because I wanted to hurt anyone, not because I was jealous or bitter or any of the other things Natalie has convinced you all that I am, but because I needed to know the truth. I needed to know if I was crazy, if I was imagining things. I really was the terrible person she'd made me out to be. Natalie's face had gone very pale, but her voice remained steady. Claire, please, you're scaring people. Whatever you think you found, I found plenty, I interrupted, looking directly at her. I found records of your real name, which isn't Natalie Morrison. I found evidence of your previous marriage, the one you never mentioned to Dylan. I found documentation of the restraining order your ex-husband filed against you for harassment and stalking. And I found something else, something that explains everything about the past 2 years, something that shows exactly what kind of person you really are. The silence in the room was so complete now that I could hear the wind rustling through the trees outside, could hear the distant sound of water lapping against the lakeshore. Her name, I said clearly, is actually Jessica Hartwell. And she's done this before. She's moved to a new city, changed her name, found a kind, trusting man from a close-knit family, married him, and then systematically destroyed his relationships with anyone who might threaten her control over him. Dylan isn't her second husband, he's her fourth. But let me back up. Let me tell you how this all started, because the truth is, I liked Natalie when Dylan first brought her home 3 years ago for Thanksgiving dinner. I really, genuinely liked her. It was November 2021, and Dylan had been cagey about this new girlfriend for weeks leading up to the holiday. He'd mentioned her name a few times, Natalie, and told us she was a graphic designer who'd moved to town from Portland about 6 months earlier. But he was being unusually secretive about details, which wasn't like him at all. Dylan had always been an open book when it came to his dating life. Probably to a fault. I just want you all to like her, he'd said when Mom pressed him for more information during our weekly family video call. She's really special, Mom. I think she might be the one. The one. Dylan was 32 years old and had said the one about exactly 0 women in his entire adult life. He'd had serious relationships before, sure, but he'd never brought anyone home for Thanksgiving, and he'd certainly never looked the way he looked when he talked about this mysterious Natalie from Portland. So when she walked through our parents' front door that Thursday afternoon in November, carrying a homemade apple pie that smelled like heaven and wearing a soft blue sweater that brought out her eyes, I was prepared to love her just because. Dylan clearly already did, and it was easy to love her. That was the thing that made everything that happened later so much more devastating. Loving Natalie felt as natural as breathing. She had this way of making you feel like you were the Most interesting person in the room, like whatever you were saying was the most fascinating thing she'd heard all day. When I mentioned that I'd just started a new job as a marketing coordinator for a nonprofit that provided art therapy for kids with autism, she lit up like I'd just told her I'd discovered the cure for cancer. "That's incredible," she said, leaning forward with genuine enthusiasm. "I've always believed that art has this amazing healing power, especially for kids who might struggle with traditional forms of communication. You must see such beautiful breakthroughs in your work." She asked thoughtful questions about the organization, about the kids I worked with, about the specific therapeutic techniques we used. She listened to my answers with a kind of focused attention that made me feel important, valued, heard in a way that was rare even within my own family. "Claire's always been the creative one," my mom said fondly, refilling Natalie's wine glass. "She got her master's degree in art therapy because she wanted to help kids express themselves when words weren't enough." "That's beautiful," Natalie said, turning those warm brown eyes back to me. "I bet you have some amazing stories. I'd love to hear more about it sometime, if you're comfortable sharing." And that was it. That was the moment I decided that Dylan had found someone truly special, someone who understood that asking about people's passions was the fastest way to their hearts. Someone who knew how to make others feel seen and valued and important. Over the course of that long Thanksgiving weekend, I watched Natalie seamlessly integrate herself into our family dynamic. She helped Mom in the kitchen without being asked, complimented Dad on his fantasy football choices, played board games with my younger cousins who were visiting, and listened patiently to Grandma Rose's stories about her childhood during the Depression. Stories we'd all heard 100 times but that somehow seemed fresh and fascinating when filtered through Natalie's attentive responses. "She's perfect," I told my best friend Zoe over the phone that Sunday evening after everyone had gone home. "Like, suspiciously perfect. I keep waiting for her to reveal some terrible flaw. But she's just genuinely lovely." "Maybe Dylan finally learned how to pick them," Zoe laughed. "Remember that girl he dated junior year who collected vintage mannequins, Amanda? And they weren't vintage, they were just creepy, right? Well, maybe his taste has finally evolved." It had certainly seemed that way over the following months. As Dylan and Natalie's relationship grew more serious, she became a regular fixture at family gatherings. She never missed a birthday party, never forgot to send a thank you card, never showed up empty-handed. She remembered that Uncle Frank was diabetic and always brought sugar-free dessert options. She knew that my cousin Jake's son was obsessed with dinosaurs and would spend entire afternoons building elaborate prehistoric scenes with him using whatever toys and household items she could find. But more than that, she seemed to genuinely care about building relationships with each of us individually. She'd text me articles about new art therapy techniques she'd found online. She'd call my mom just to chat, not because she needed anything, but because she wanted to check in and see how everyone was doing. She'd send my dad photos of craft beer labels from breweries she'd visit on work trips, knowing he collected them. It was thoughtful. It was sweet. It was exactly the kind of behavior you'd want from someone who was going to become a permanent part of your family. And when Dylan proposed on Christmas Eve, 14 months after that first Thanksgiving dinner, I cried happy tears right along with everyone else. Because it felt right. It felt like Natalie belonged with us, like she'd always been meant to be Dylan's wife and our sister and daughter-in-law. The wedding planning was a dream. Natalie involved me in every decision, asking for my opinion on flowers and venues and dress styles like my input actually mattered to her. She made me feel like a valued member of the wedding party, not just Dylan's sister who had to be included out of obligation. "I want this to feel like a celebration of families coming together," she told me over lunch one Saturday afternoon. As we browsed through invitation samples, not just Dylan and me getting married, but all of us becoming officially connected. "I want everyone to feel like they're part of something special." And they did. The wedding in June 2022 was everything Natalie had promised it would be: intimate, meaningful, joyful. She'd somehow managed to create an event that felt personal and unique while still honoring all the traditional elements that mattered to our more conservative family members. The ceremony was held in a small garden venue outside of town, with fairy lights strung between the trees and mason jars filled with wildflowers on every table. Dylan looked happier than I'd ever seen him, and Natalie looked radiant in a simple but elegant dress that somehow managed to be both classic and modern at the same time. During the reception, she made sure to dance with every important man in our family: Dad, Uncle Frank, my grandfather. Even my shy teenage cousin who'd been too nervous to ask any of the other girls. She's a keeper, Grandma Rose told me, as we watched Natalie patiently teaching that same teenage cousin how to properly lead during a slow song. That boy found himself a real treasure, I agreed completely, as I watched my new sister-in-law gracefully navigate her own wedding reception, making sure every guest felt included and special. I felt genuinely grateful that Dylan had found someone so perfect for him, so perfect for all of us. I had no idea that I was watching a master class in manipulation. That every thoughtful gesture and genuine seeming conversation had been carefully calculated to establish trust and affection that could later be weaponized. I had no idea that the woman I was growing to love like a sister was already laying the groundwork to systematically destroy my relationships with every person in that room. I had no idea that the real Natalie Morrison didn't exist at all. Next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.